بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. معزز سامعین و ناظرین السلام علیکم. آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں یوٹیوب چینل سچ کی دنیا اور میں اجمل علی. جیسا کہ آپ سب کو پتہ ہے کہ حال ہی میں سابق پرائم منسٹر عمران خان نے امریکی چینل CNN کو انٹرویو دیا اور انٹرویو میں انہوں نے کیا کیا نکات اٹھائے اس پہ آج تجزیہ کریں گے. سابق پرائم منسٹر اور چیئرمین تحریک انصاف نے امریکی چینل CNN کو دیے گئے انٹرویو میں پاکستان میں رجیم چینج اور پاکستان کے اندرونی معاملات میں مداخلت کی اور دھمکیوں کو اس انٹرویو میں اٹھایا. ان معاملات کو اٹھایا اسی انٹرویو میں. کس میں؟ جو امریکہ کو انٹرویو دیا، امریکہ کے چینل نے لیا اور امریکی پرسن کے آگے جو امریکہ میں لائیو چل رہا ہے اس پہ خان صاحب نے کیا کیا کہا آپ کو سنواتے ہیں. اور خان صاحب نے باقاعدہ لائیو کیا کہا. انہیں یہ کہا کہ امریکی سفیر کو جرأت کیسے ہوئی کہ وہ 22 کروڑ کی الیکٹ گورنمنٹ کو ہٹائے اور کہے اسے چلتا کرو. آئیں اور کیا کیا اس انٹرویو میں ہوا، کیا کیا فارمر پرائم منسٹر کو سوال کیے گئے، انہوں نے کیا جواب دیے، آپ کو سنواتے ہیں. اور ناظرین مزے کی بات ایک اور بتاؤں، جب اینکر پرسن بیکی اینڈرسن نے سوال کیا کہ ہیں کیا آپ نے روس کا دورہ کیا، اس پہ خان صاحب نے کیا جواب دیا. اور آگے جب اس نے پوچھا کیا آپ دوبارہ آئیں گے تو اس پہ انہوں نے کیا خان صاحب نے جواب دیا. اگر کوئی اور سیاستدان ہوتا تو وہ کیا جواب دیتا، سمجھ تو گئے ہوں گے آپ. چلیں آئیں سنتے ہیں خان صاحب کو کہ انہوں نے کیا کہا.
Well, in his first interview with international media since being removed from power, he tells me, that is Imran Khan, how he believes the United States interfered to have him ousted.
On the 7th of March, Becky, Under Secretary of State in the U.S. who's responsible for South Asia, he calls our ambassador, a meeting between our ambassador in Washington. He tells our ambassador, in an official meeting, there are note takers on both sides. He tells the ambassador that unless you get rid of your Prime Minister Imran Khan in a vote of no confidence, which by the way hadn't been tabled as yet, but he seemed to know about it, he said unless you get rid of him, Pakistan will suffer consequences. And then goes on to say, of course, if you get rid of him through the vote of no confidence, all will be forgiven. Such arrogance, apart from anything else. By the way, Becky, this guy should be sacked for bad manners and sheer arrogance. Imagine telling a country, an ambassador of a country of 220 million people that you get rid of your prime minister. So this is where it started. The next day, this vote of no confidence is tabled in our parliament.
And then follows... Why have you never made this public before? You are being very specific about what you allege was said.
Well, Becky, I put it in front of our cabinet. This cipher was read out in the cabinet. There are minutes of the cabinet. Then I presented it in our National Security Council, where all the service chiefs were present. Why did I present them? Because this was a blatant intervention in the internal affairs of Pakistan, a regime change.
As the US, let me repeat, has rubbished the notion that they have been involved in regime change in Pakistan, you continue to assert what they suggest is a conspiracy theory here. Do you genuinely believe that the US has been behind a regime change in Pakistan?
Before this happened, before this meeting with Donald Lu and our ambassador, the US embassy was calling members of my party who were some of the backbenchers who were not happy. They were having meetings with the US embassy. And what were they meeting them? And they were the first ones who then jumped ship. And they were the ones who then offered $1 million each to buy my other members of parliament who actually jumped ship later on. Why would the US Embassy be interested in backbenchers of our party?
So is the current government an American implant?
It's with their blessings. And, you know, the painful thing, Becky, is not just that everyone, we all call it imported government, but the worst thing is there are a bunch of criminals. For 30 years, these guys have been plundering the country. 60% of the cabinet is on bail.
You were in Russia meeting President Putin the day he announced the war in Ukraine. The optics didn't and don't look good, do they?
They didn't, Becky, but let me explain to you, this visit was planned a long time back, and all the stakeholders in Pakistan were on board. The military wanted hardware from the Russians. We wanted oil. There was a gas pipeline which was being negotiated for the past 6 years before my government came in. So this trip was planned a long time before. How would I know that the day I land in Moscow, President Putin decides to go into Ukraine? I wasn't supposed to know that.
Do you regret that trip now?
I would regret if we had known about the invasion and then I had gone in, I guess I would have regretted it, because I do not believe in military solutions. I have opposed all military ways of achieving political ends. So, but I wasn't supposed to know.
Imran Khan, will you run again? Will you run again as Prime Minister in the next elections?
Whenever the next elections take place, not only will we run, but I can predict right now that this will become the biggest party in Pakistan's history, because people are so incensed and feel insulted that these criminals have been foisted upon us, who have been plundering this country for 30 years. There is anger in Pakistan. And unfortunately, because of all this becoming public, the cipher, Donald Rue's comments, who should be sacked for bad manners, there's anti-Americanism. Because you know that so many regime changes, where the US, like in Iran, Prime Minister Mossadegh, like in South American countries, when unpopular governments are foisted on a people, the resentment then goes to against the US. And unfortunately, yes, there is.
अपना ख्याल रखिएगा, अपने इस चैनल का भी ख्याल रखिएगा. अल्लाह हाफिज़. पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद.